Welcome back to the SampanViking on China channel. And first of all, I would like to wish a very happy new year to all subscribers and viewers. It's hard to believe that this channel has now been running for best part of 6 months. And whilst it is still a very small channel with a small readership, a small viewership, we do seem to have established a small and hopefully even dedicated, quote, that isn't too grand a word to use for it, a good group of regular viewers who tune in and check out what I have to say. Thank you very much to everybody that has subscribed and who does regularly tune in. I hope you find what you hear useful to you and presented in an intelligible and even hopefully enjoyable way. And obviously, I look forward to taking this channel forward into next year, and who knows? Who knows where indeed this journey may well end up. But at the moment, we're here. And very briefly, I just want to have a chat, and I'm going to call it China Russia's secret weapon. And whilst it sounds very grand, it really is looking at a facet of both China and Russia, which originally I had intended for this conversation to be a discussion on governance and the power of governance, and looking at things like Evergreen and other Chinese companies in the way that they're managed, etc., and other aspects relating to that. But as seems to be the case nowadays, greater geopolitical events are moving in such a way as to rather overtake or to sideline such other concerns, which is a shame because they are important considerations and do help shape how we should look at other aspects of the international situation. And so I did mention it simply because this is a real factor, but it needs to be considered when we look at what is possibly going on on the more kinetic side of international relations. And what I mean by this is the continuing maneuvers, mainly at the moment between Russia and the West, with the focus on the Ukraine, but which can very easily also relate to the focus between China and the US, on the focus on Taiwan. And I have to be very grateful to Alexander Mercouris for his video that came out earlier today, that again pointed me in this direction with something that he said, which gelled very nicely with some thoughts I'd been having, that related principally to governance, but which also very nicely dovetailed into this area as well. Now, what he said was boiled down to that a lot of the maneuvers that are going on between Russia and the US at the moment may very well boil down to an attempt to get the Minsk agreement back on track and its provisions in operation. And that wouldn't necessarily be a difficult thing for the United States to do, because this is a UN supported resolution. Everybody's signed up to it. It is simply the case that nobody has actually acted on it. And it is that lack of action, which was the spur, if you like, that got me to think about governance both in China, Russia, and in the West in general. And this is what the title of the talk actually relates to: China, Russia's secret weapon. And their secret weapon, quite simply, is their uniformity. Certainly in government, their ability to present a unified face, and both singularly as well as together, and to be able to pursue policy objectives without obvious signs of infighting and factionalism, to the point where it is to the detriment of being able to pursue the policy. I'm sure there are factions both in Russia and in China, and I'm sure they do compete for influence, but at the moment, certainly with the incumbent Xi and Putin, I think such factionalism is well and truly subdued, and that the will of the executive is pretty much well accepted by governments all the way through. a million miles away from the situation in the West, where polarization at all levels seems to be at a level we have never seen before. Call them hawks and doves, if you like. Call them neocons or liberals or neoliberals, although I don't really see the difference myself. Call it between the very hawkish and the not so hawkish, I suppose, really is the easiest designation. And this runs through all the various stratas. So we have not only the divisions within certainly the United States, which is highly polarized. The same polarizations exist in most European countries. They exist in NATO, between the European-based NATO members and the US itself, and of course between the European Union and the individual states of the European Union as well. It is a mess. And I do suspect that the whole reason that the Minsk agreement has not been up and running is that there is very powerful opposition to it doing so, because there is a lot of vested interests, the neocons, if you like, who do not want to see a resolution. They do not want to see their hands being tied. Putin's demands, his draft agreements on the further expansion of NATO and even the retraction of NATO from a buffer zone, is obviously anathema to their ears, and they will have none of it. And those who actually see this as the only way of preventing a war in Europe, and the neocons who are actually pressing for a war, this conflict between them, I think, will be driven to fever pitch. And the Minsk agreement, on the face of it, a very innocent looking request to implement an existing treaty that has been set in place and signed up to, may in fact be the rock in which Russia gets its enemies to dash itself to pieces against. And we wonder whether or not the Chinese are looking for a similar mechanism in order to get a similar result from the forces arrayed against them as well, which does seem to be happening. There do seem to be cracks in the armor of the alliance that the US would like to form against China. It does seem very, very paper thin, and again, anything that sets people against each other, and that is another divide in America as well. Those that see Russia as the main problem to be dealt with, and those that see Russia as a backwater and only China matters. Again, all these very open, very public competing agendas, literally ripping and pulling US policy apart, and the ability of the US to govern itself, governance, being pulled to shreds and therefore rendered incompetent. You can see why somebody like Putin definitely would be very keen to exploit such fault lines, and he would be foolish not to do so against an enemy of this sort, knowing what they are capable of, knowing what they are prepared to stoop to in order to achieve their objectives. I suppose the biggest danger is that for the time being, we have had really the West, the the compromise between the party factions of the West has been to present the steel fist with a velvet glove. And to take hold of the velvet glove and pull and see whether the whole hand comes forward or whether the glove comes off, I think is a very astute move to make. Because at the end of the day, if the true intention is to have a war in Europe, then it is probably better for the Russians, certainly, to make that unambiguously clear, so that they can plan and take their steps accordingly. It would be the worst possible thing to be caught up caught up in a peace process which is totally insincere and is simply being used to buy time and public opinion in the West in order for them to be able to unleash to go back on their word as they've done so many times in the past, and to do it very quickly, and to launch kinetic action against the Russian Federation. Very, very quickly on the back of it. And similar, you would have to say, with the situation with Taiwan as well. People, as it was, Clausewitz said that those that that those that rule by force speak most copiously about peace whilst they're completing the mobilization process. Um, and there's a strong element of that visible in the policy of the West at the moment. And I think both Russia and China are fully aware of that and really want to pull away, push, blow away the mist and the fog of disingenuousness in order to reveal the true intention in all its ugliness, so that they have the justification for taking the necessary action, or, of course, to put the hawks on the precipice, so that they really have no choice, or to put the West on the precipice. So again, it has to make up its mind as to which way it's really going to jump. In which case, there's even a good chance that that the cause of sanity may actually come back into play. It's an optimistic thought. I have to say, I do worry whether or not the political process, the political mentality, the oligarchic control of the West is now pushed into such a direction and to such a level of disarray in terms of the coordination between the parties that actually is impossible, and that the only momentum left is the one down towards destruction, and that with dragging as many other people along with it as they possibly can. Doesn't actually sound like a very happy New Year topic, does it? But this is the world that we exist in. This is the situation that we are in. And so, yes, you could understand that the Russians would like very much to offer things which, to a proposal that is not necessarily unfair, to compromise for a strategy, for a treaty that already exists. And if none of these things work, and instead there is only hostility and aggression, it really does show that there is only really malevolence on the cause of the West being directed against it. And China, of course, would be looking and seeking to do things in its own way, to achieve a similar result in its own part of the world, really to show to all those around it is that talks of peace and coexistence and freedom, etc., etc., is so much baloney, and all that the United States really is interested in is the continuation of its own hegemony. Well, that is probably more than enough for me. It was quite a bit longer than I intended this year-end address to go. All I can say is thank you very much again for all those that have joined me over this journey of the last 6 months. I hope that you will continue to join with me in the new year. It's 2022, just around the corner. If you did enjoy this video, please press like. If you are not subscribed, please do so. It's free and it does help the channel to grow. If you would like other people to listen to what I have to say, please share. And if you would like to ask a question or make a comment on any relevant subject, or the channel in general, please leave a comment and I will respond or reply where appropriate. Thank you very much, and I look forward to seeing you next year in the next video.